Gemini said, "Script start." Dana White stood before the crowd at the Zuffa boxing event with a demeanor that wasn't just professional, it was somber. He wasn't there to hype up the next big card or celebrate a champion. He was there to talk about the collapse of an empire. When a reporter finally asked the question everyone in the combat sports industry had been avoiding, Dana didn't shy away. He acknowledged the grim reality of Floyd Mayweather's current financial state, remarking that it is truly horrible to see someone who worked that hard and amassed such historic wealth watch it all evaporate. These are not the words of a man observing a temporary cash flow issue. They are the observations of an industry veteran who knows the warning signs of total insolvency. Think about the gravity of that for a moment. The man who transformed the UFC into a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut is now publicly floating the idea of offering a financial lifeline to the person once marketed as the literal face of money. This isn't charity. It is a calculated recognition that the legend of Floyd Mayweather is currently caught in a downward spiral of legal battles and debt that threatens to erase a career of unprecedented earnings. To understand the sheer scale of what is happening in 2026, we have to look past the boxing record and the flashy Instagram posts. We are talking about a man who earned an estimated $1.2 billion over 21 years. That is generational wealth on a scale most cannot fathom. Yet, today, that fortune is under siege across New York, California, and Nevada. It is a web of litigation, felony charges, and government liens that suggests the machine behind the money has completely broken down. Logan Paul recently revealed on a podcast that he is still waiting on $1.5 million from his fight with Floyd, claiming that his likeness was pre-sold to an international entity for $10 million without his cut being honored. When you combine those kinds of allegations with the fact that the IRS has filed millions in liens against his assets repeatedly over the last decade, including a $7.3 million lien for unpaid taxes, the picture becomes clear. The money is not just missing, it is actively being hunted by the government and former associates alike. The most damning evidence, however, might be the simplest. In April 2026, Floyd was hit with felony charges for allegedly writing a $200,000 check from his Wells Fargo account that bounced. He was trying to buy an Audemars Piguet watch from a Las Vegas retailer. A man who once flew his entire entourage on private jets and carried cash in a backpack to maintain an image of bottomless luxury couldn't cover a luxury watch purchase. That singular act of insolvency tells you everything you need to know about where things stand behind the velvet ropes. This downfall finds its roots in a New York courtroom involving a man Floyd once called his brother, Jonah Rechnitz. Rechnitz was not an outsider. He was the man Floyd entrusted with his banking, his real estate, and his private aviation. This is where the story shifts from bad luck to a sophisticated and systematic draining of assets. Rechnitz was a convicted felon before he ever entered Floyd's inner circle, having served as a government informant after pleading guilty to federal corruption charges for bribing NYPD officials and rigging pension funds. Despite this, or perhaps because of a misplaced sense of loyalty, Mayweather put him in control of his business affairs in 2024. Under the guidance of Rechnitz, the boxer went on an aggressive and erratic acquisition spree, claiming to invest in everything from an affordable housing portfolio in New York to the famous Versace mansion in Miami Beach. On the surface, the narrative was that Floyd was evolving from a fighter into a real estate mogul. But the reality, as detailed in a bombshell $175 million lawsuit, was that the money was moving but never arriving where it was supposed to. According to the court filings, Rechnitz allegedly gained total control over Floyd's accounts and began routing massive sums to an investment firm called First Apex Ventures. Transaction by transaction, this firm became the black hole for Mayweather's fortune. In one instance, Floyd allegedly signed a blank bill of sale for his own private jet with no buyer and no purchase price, with the proceeds eventually being diverted to cover a Bugatti-related obligation that had nothing to do with him. The sophistication of the real estate scheme was even more brazen. Mayweather entered into a contract to purchase a 5% interest in a large Manhattan portfolio. Yet the lawsuit alleges that Rechnitz secretly redirected 20% of all distributions from that property to First Apex. In a January 2026 email to portfolio managers, Rechnitz instructed them to send the funds to the usual account as if he were just handling routine business. He treated the redirection of millions of dollars of Floyd's money as if it were a casual administrative task. When you see that level of manipulation, the irony is crushing. This was the man Floyd put in charge of his financial life. Further deepening the crisis, a co-defendant has allegedly admitted by phone to Floyd that he helped divert millions in refinance proceeds from a Las Vegas property to these same fraudulent accounts. This admission serves as a smoking gun that confirms the internal nature of the theft. While Reconitz's team claims the lawsuit is baseless and that Floyd authorized every move, the sheer volume of documentation, the empty bills of sale, the unauthorized transfers, and the diverted distributions paints a picture of a man who was meticulously stripped of his assets. But Floyd didn't just fight this one front. He simultaneously declared war on Showtime Networks and Steven Espinoza, the architect of his most lucrative broadcast deals. The complaint seeks at least $340 million, with the potential for that number to climb to $680 million when factoring in punitive damages. Floyd alleges that Showtime facilitated a long-running fraud involving his former manager, Al Heyman. For years, Heyman operated entirely in the shadows, representing the most powerful force in boxing, without ever giving a public interview. If you take the Reconitz suit and the Showtime suit at face value, you are looking at claims of fraud that total more than half of Floyd's career earnings. It is an extraordinary admission of vulnerability. This is why the exhibition fights you have seen announced in 2026 are not about legacy or the sport. They are desperate cash grabs. The exhibition in Greece against Mike Zambidis was supposed to be an 8-round event that would have provided much-needed liquidity. Instead, it became another disaster. A promoter named CSI Entertainment filed a massive breach of contract lawsuit, claiming they had already paid Floyd millions in advances for a fight against Mike Tyson and a rematch against Manny Pacquiao. They argued that Floyd took their money and then immediately booked a separate fight in Greece without their permission. The resulting legal injunction didn't just cancel the Athens fight. It effectively froze Floyd's ability to generate new revenue through his most marketable events. Now the Pacquiao rematch, which was set to be the biggest commercial event of the year, is in limbo. Netflix, which was expected to stream the event, now faces a situation where the main star is tied up in 4 separate states with civil lawsuits and 2 felony charges for financial fraud. Every time Floyd attempts to turn around and secure a payday, he finds himself blocked by a wall of his own making. The irony of the man who branded himself as money is inescapable. He has gone from counting stacks of cash on private jets to being sued for child support, unpaid rent, and bounced checks. This isn't just about bad management. It is about the structural collapse of a business model that was built on ego and fueled by a lack of oversight. The 2026 calendar for Floyd Mayweather has been a series of cancellations in courtroom appearances. 3 fights scheduled, 0 fights completed. Each cancellation represents a missed opportunity to stay afloat. Even if he were to somehow resolve the issues with CSI and go through with the Tyson and Pacquiao bouts, the damage to his reputation and his financial standing may already be irreversible. Dana White is right. The life of an elite athlete often ends with a quiet realization that the money is gone. But for someone as public as Floyd, the collapse is happening in front of the entire world. The fact that the CEO of the UFC is even open to talking about a partnership with Floyd suggests that the money pit might be deeper than anyone wants to admit. There are reports that Floyd has generated $2.7 billion in revenue throughout his career, a record that will likely never be eclipsed. Yet, that historic achievement is now being overshadowed by the sheer volume of his financial failings. The lawsuits are not going to go away anytime soon. They are going to drag on for years, burning through whatever resources he has left while the bills for his lifestyle continue to mount. Whether he can find a way to reclaim any of these funds, or whether he will spend the next decade defending his remaining assets, is the defining question of his post-boxing life. Floyd Mayweather once said that he was the only fighter who didn't need the sport of boxing. But that statement has never looked more false than it does right now. He is currently trapped in a reality where his name is no longer enough to generate the trust he once held. He has become the primary cautionary tale for what happens when the business of being a brand supersedes the actual management of wealth. The tragedy is not just that he lost the money, it is that he lost control of the narrative. The fighter who was always in control, who always dictated the terms, is now at the mercy of judges, attorneys, and the very associates he once trusted to build his future. The door is closing, and the path to a financial comeback has never looked more uncertain. It is a stark reminder that even at the highest level of competition, the most difficult fight is not against an opponent in the ring, but against the people you invite into your corner. As we look at the wreckage of his 2026 business ventures, one has to wonder if the legacy of the man known as money will be defined by the billions he earned or by the catastrophic way he lost it all. Everything he spent 2 decades building is now being dismantled piece by piece in courtrooms across the nation. The cycle of lawsuits, the bounced checks, the unpaid debts, and the broken promises to fans and partners alike. It all culminates in a single, sobering conclusion. Floyd Mayweather is currently fighting for his financial survival, and for the first time in his life, he is not the favorite to win. When the dust finally settles on these legal battles, the real story will not be about boxing or records. It will be about the fragility of wealth and the dangers of letting those who seek to profit from your name take the wheel. The numbers, the names, and the facts we have examined point to a pattern of systemic failure that no amount of promotional genius can hide. He is a man caught in the middle of a perfect storm, where every decision he makes seems to lead to another legal challenge or another financial disaster. If he can somehow navigate the path ahead, if he can satisfy his creditors and make it to the ring for those final big paydays, he might survive. But that is a very big if. The current state of his affairs is not a blip. It is a fundamental shift in his reality. The era of the undisputed, untouchable, and infinitely wealthy champion is over, replaced by the mundane and brutal reality of civil litigation and the pursuit of debt. Think about what this means for the next generation of athletes who look up to the icons of today. It is a brutal lesson in the necessity of due diligence and the danger of surrounding yourself with people who prioritize their own interests over yours. As the litigation unfolds, the public will continue to get a front-row seat to the slow dismantling of a legend. The question now is not whether he can fight his way back to the top of the financial charts, but whether he can settle his affairs before the consequences of his actions leave him with nothing at all. He has spent years being the protagonist of his own story, a hero of his own design, but now he is merely another defendant in a series of cases that threaten to strip away his lifestyle, his reputation, and his freedom. That is the true cost of the life he chose, and it is a price that seems to be paid in full with every passing headline. The irony remains that even with all the money he made, he finds himself in a position where he is desperate for more, constantly chasing the next deal, the next exhibition, and the next pay-per-view to keep the walls from closing in. And yet, every time he tries to run, he trips over the same obstacles he created. It is a tragic loop, one that seems destined to continue until either the money runs out completely, or the law finally steps in to force a conclusion. The story of Floyd Mayweather in 2026 is not about a comeback. It is about the cold, hard reality of what happens when the hype meets the law. There is no more room for the persona, no more room for the flash, and certainly no more room for the excuses. There is only the evidence, the documents, and the mounting pressure that every day grows a little more intense. He may still hold the record in the ring, but he has lost his standing in the boardroom, and in the world of high-stakes finance, that is a defeat he cannot recover from easily. This is where we leave the story for now, as the lawsuits continue to pile up and the dream of a grand return to the ring remains as distant as ever. The empire that seems so indestructible has shown its cracks, and those cracks have now become a gaping chasm that threatens to consume everything that remains. It is a cautionary tale that will likely be studied for years, a testament to the fact that when you build your life on a foundation of excess, it only takes one collapse to bring the whole structure down. The story is ongoing, the legal battles are far from resolved, and the future of Floyd Mayweather remains in the hands of the courts, where his name carries far less weight than it ever did in the boxing ring. That, in the end, is the true legacy of the man they called money. A reminder that in the world of finance, just like in boxing, you are only as good as your last fight, and right now, Floyd is losing that fight badly. The reality of his financial situation is grim, the legal path is treacherous, and the public's perception of his empire is shifting from one of awe to one of scrutiny. We have analyzed the lawsuits, the liens, the bounced checks, and the broken promises, and the picture that emerges is one of a man who has lost control of his own narrative. Whether he can find a way to navigate this crisis, or whether it will be the end of his legacy as a financial titan, is a story that will unfold over the coming months. Stay tuned as this legal situation develops, because if there is one thing we have learned, it is that in the world of Floyd Mayweather, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. There will be more filings, more arguments, and more attempts to reach a resolution. But for now, the story of his downfall serves as a stark warning about the fleeting nature of wealth when it is not managed with the same discipline that earned it in the first place. You have to consider the gravity of every single detail we have covered today, from the bounced watch payment to the misappropriated millions, and let that be a lesson in how quickly things can change when the foundation is flawed. He is the master of his own demise, and the world is watching to see how the final rounds of this fight play out, knowing full well that there is no longer a guaranteed win waiting for him at the end of the night. For all the talk of his potential return, the only thing that is certain is that the road ahead is filled with obstacles that no amount of skill in the ring can overcome. He built an empire that captured the world's attention, and now he is forced to watch as that same world observes its steady decline, piece by agonizing piece. It is a tragic end to a legendary run, and it is a story that reminds us all that when the money stops, the reality of the situation is the only thing that remains. We will continue to follow the developments in this case, tracking every twist and turn as the legal drama continues to unfold in real time. So make sure you stay informed as this story progresses toward its eventual conclusion. It is a complex web, and as more information comes to light, the true extent of the damage will only become more apparent, forcing us all to confront the reality that even the biggest legends are not immune to the consequences of their own choices. The fight is far from over, but the direction of the outcome is becoming increasingly clear with every passing day, as the legal system continues to pick apart the pieces of an empire that once seemed like it would last forever. Stay focused on the facts, as they will be the only things that matter when the final verdict is delivered in these ongoing cases. This is the truth behind the headlines, the reality behind the rumors, and the story of how one of the greatest athletes in history found himself in a position that no one ever thought possible. Keep watching, keep observing, and keep questioning. Because in a world where everything is a performance, the truth is often the only thing worth holding on to when the curtain finally falls. We have provided the full scope of the situation, the legal failures, and the financial discrepancies that have defined his year. And we have done it with the analytical focus required to understand the full weight of these events as they continue to play out across the country. There is no easy answer, no simple resolution, and no way to turn back the clock to a time before these issues started to surface. Which is why we must continue to look at the evidence as it is presented and draw our own conclusions about the future of his career and his legacy. The path forward is uncertain, the legal challenges are mounting, and the pressure on Floyd Mayweather to find a way out is at an all-time high, making this one of the most critical moments in the life of a man who once stood at the very top of the world. As we look at the totality of the circumstances, the only thing that is clear is that the life of a legend is often more complicated, more fragile, and more susceptible to ruin than we are ever led to believe by the marketing and the media. It is a story of excess, of trust, of betrayal, and of the harsh realities that follow when the facade finally begins to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. The legacy of Floyd Mayweather will always be debated, but as of now, that debate is no longer about his record in the ring, but about his ability to survive the fallout of the life he created outside of it. The path is narrow, the stakes are high, and the world is watching, waiting to see what happens when the final bell rings on the biggest financial battle of his life. We have laid out the facts, analyzed the evidence, and presented the reality of the situation as it exists right now, and the rest, as they say, is up to the courts to decide as we continue to track this unfolding story of decline and the search for a way to save what is left of an empire that once promised to last for generations to come, leaving us to wonder if the name money will ever mean the same thing again in the years that lie ahead. The evidence is clear, the stakes are absolute, and the reality is undeniable as we witness the conclusion of a chapter that will be remembered long after the final judgment is handed down in these proceedings. We are witnessing the end of an era, a moment that will define the rest of his life and leave a lasting mark on the history of combat sports as we know them today. With every detail contributing to the broader story of how a titan fell, and what happens to the pieces that are left behind once the smoke finally clears, providing us with a definitive look at the consequences of his actions and the long-term impact on his legacy in the world of professional boxing. We have reached the point where the details can no longer be ignored, and the truth is the only thing that remains to be seen as we head toward the final chapters of this complex and deeply troubling saga that has captivated everyone who has followed his career from the beginning to this point. The reality is that the story is not over, and we will be here to cover it until the end. So stay tuned for further updates as the legal proceedings continue to move forward in the coming months, providing us with the clarity we need to understand the true impact of this situation on the man, the legend, and the future of his life, career, and reputation as a public figure. We have left no stone unturned in our analysis, and we will continue to do so as we track every development, every filing, and every decision that shapes the future of this unfolding story as it continues to demand our attention in these final stages of the legal process, ensuring that you have all the facts necessary to make sense of a situation that is as complex as it is significant for the history of sports and finance alike. This is the conclusion of our report, and as we look toward the future, we invite you to remain part of the conversation as the final chapters of this story unfold in the courtrooms and in the public eye, leaving us to wonder what the ultimate cost of this downfall will be for a man who once had everything and is now fighting to hold on to whatever might remain of the life he worked so hard to build. The journey has been long, The path has been difficult, and the future remains uncertain as we wait to see how the legal system resolves these issues, and whether the man who once dominated the world of boxing can ever truly find his way back to the position he occupied at the height of his career, or if the events of 2026 will be the final chapters in a story that began with such promise and ended with such a dramatic and painful decline. The evidence is in, the case is being built, and the story is far from over. But for now, we have documented the rise and the fall of the legend, the man and the myth of Floyd Mayweather in this final look at the facts that have defined his year. The question remains, and only time will tell what the future holds for the man who once called himself money and now finds himself struggling to hold on to the last remaining threads of an empire that he built with his own two hands, in the ring and in the world of business, ensuring that we understand the full gravity of his situation as we close this chapter. The story is a reminder of the fragility of success and the importance of integrity, and it serves as a powerful message to all those who seek to build something that lasts, because in the end, it is not just about the money you make, but how you manage it, who you trust with it, and what you do when the world comes to claim it all back. This has been the full account of the state of his empire, the lawsuits, the criminal charges, and the reality of his financial situation. And we thank you for following along as we have broken down the details of this historic downfall that will be discussed for years to come. The investigation concludes here, but the story is far from finished as the legal processes will continue, and we remain dedicated to covering the truth as it reveals itself in the courtrooms where the future of his legacy will be decided once and for all. Everything you need to know about the current state of affairs has been detailed in this report, and we will continue to provide the updates as they happen, ensuring you remain informed about every step in this complex and multifaceted case that continues to grab headlines across the globe. The story is a deep dive into the heart of the combat sports industry, and a look at the pressures that define the lives of the legends who grace the ring. And we have done our part to bring the full picture to you. We leave you with the final takeaway that the legacy of a man is not defined by his wealth, but by his actions, and the events of 2026 are the final judge of that reality. It has been a long look at the truth, and we hope this analysis has provided the clarity you need to understand the weight of these events in the context of the sport, the business, and the man at the center of it all, Floyd Mayweather. Thank you for listening.